How do I sound to you? Can you hear me all right?
You sound wonderful. Yeah.
Okay, beautiful. So do you, by the way. You got a great voice on you there.
Thanks, man. Thanks. Likewise.
Well, you've got one of those voices where I feel like, have people always assumed you're older than you are from a young age with that voice?
Always. I sounded like this since I was like 16.
Oh, damn.
Yeah. I remember distinctly one of my PE teacher in like 6th grade or something. I ran into him he knew me as a kid, and then I ran into him when I was like 16 or 17, and I had this voice, and he was like, what's going on here?
That's great, man. You must have been the one, kids trying to get you to buy them booze and stuff because people wouldn't ID you.
I rarely got ID'd, and, there was always like, I remember one time there was this girl who, this guy kept bothering her. And she had me act like I was her dad on the phone.
Not even her boyfriend, her dad.
Yeah.
That's so funny. That's like, that's great. Not only because it's a funny story, but that's like a new, fresh way to put somebody in the friend zone.
100%.
Oh, man.
Yeah, good times.
Well, dude, thanks for being here, man. It's nice to meet you. I appreciate you taking the time to do it.
Yeah, likewise. Thanks for taking the time to have me, man.
So where are you in the world?
I'm in Miami. I have a show this Friday playing at a place called Zay Zay. And it's actually my first time playing in Miami, so I'm pretty excited. And yeah, it's my own show, ticketed headline thing. So,
well, you're starting your whole tour, right?
Yeah, I started the tour in about February, I think, but then took the month of March off for Ramadan, just because, to be respectful, but also like a lot of the fan base observe Ramadan as well. So I want people to be able to come to the shows and enjoy. And, there's lots of times there's been times in the past where I did shows during Ramadan and people were like, I can't come, but I want to.
Right. Well, I was actually wondering that, like, you're growing a lot right now. I mean, I've been aware of you and what you're doing for a long time, but it seems like there's a lot of buzz and a lot of growth happening right now. What do the crowds look like? Like, what are the demographics who are coming out now that you're doing these like big venues, like significant large spaces?
Yeah, it's a big mix. I would say it's predominantly like Middle Eastern, but I would say it's like maybe 70% Middle Eastern, 67, depends on the city, but let's say at least 60% Middle Eastern. And when I say Middle Eastern, I mean any Arabic speaking country, Armenians, Persians as well, which I know they don't speak Arabic, but I include them in Middle Eastern, Afghanis, anything in that whole region, really, North Africans, like, so I would umbrella those all into Middle Eastern. And then after that, I'd say it's like a good mix of like a lot of like South Asians, a lot of like Latinos, Africans, Asian. I mean, everything, and like definitely white people too, which is
well.
Great.
That was my question. Is like, have the white people caught on yet?
Some, not all, but some, and it's really cool because there are lots of times where they're just like white people who've never really been exposed, or who, I mean, I guess I don't know, maybe they've been exposed, but white people who like otherwise might not have been exposed to a lot of this kind of music, and they come and they have the time of their lives. And like, I remember I played in Sydney, Australia in December. And it was like a day festival kind of thing with a bunch of DJs lined up on it. And I wasn't really sure how many people would be there intentionally for me or not. Turns out a decent chunk were, which was awesome. But then after my set, which went amazing, I remember I was walking around the crowd and all these like just Australian white people were coming up to me and they were like, we don't know what that was, but we had the time of our lives.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, well, because I think there's, at least for people who truly love music, I'm kind of just speaking for myself now. Because I remember, I don't know, do you know the DJ Uproot Andy from New York?
Of course, my homie.
Yeah, that's my dude. And he, a very long time ago, kind of was that for me. The first time I ever saw him play was that exact thing where I don't think I knew a single song he played the whole night. And I was losing my mind. And it's one of those things where if you truly love music and you love, you know, whatever it is, nightlife culture, dance culture, there's something so incredible. It's like somebody is opening a portal to a brand new world that you just had no idea existed. And it's, at least, again, just speaking for me, was like such a beautiful gift that he gave me at that point. Because, you know, music is my whole thing. That's all I know, right? And then being someone else being like, sure, but have you seen like the rest of it? You know, it's such a beautiful moment. I think about him all the time, man. I love him. But it's very cool that you're able to do that on a big scale now. Like
Thanks, man.
I feel like, I don't know, I don't have a reference point for someone else doing it on that level in the States, in the venues, these sizes, the same venues that these big EDM people are playing, you know, that kind of like, are there other contemporaries like sort of, I'm not trying to get you to just like brag here, but
I don't know that there are too, at least not, maybe not in the like Middle Eastern space, that are playing similar types of venues and based like in the States here. Like I would say based elsewhere, there's definitely a few and they're all friends of mine. There's Salia from the UK, Nuria also from the UK, Young Singh also from the UK, although he's more of the South Asian kind of representation. And there's lots, well, maybe not lots, but there are definitely other people. But in the States, I think less so, at least, you know, kind of playing these kinds of venues, at least in the Middle Eastern space.
Well, it's cool, man. I mean, I want to talk about how you got it to this point. I'm trying to think of where to even start with it. I mean, for you, I guess, you're on the Habibi's House tour throughout like the first half of this year. You're playing these huge venues. Was this something you envisioned a while back, or is like the fact that it has gotten to this point kind of unbelievable to you?
It's kind of unbelievable to me. Yeah. It's not something I ever envisioned in this way really at all. The impetus, I think, came from me wanting to find, there's a lot to get into, but I would say I was at a point where I had decided I wanted to make music my career, right? And I've been DJing. When was this? So I've been DJing since I was 13-ish. I'm 30 now, so I've been DJing for like 16, 17 years. It wasn't until about 2021 that I decided I wanted music to be my full-time thing. When I made that decision, I pretty quickly realized that trying to make music my full-time living purely off of DJing and not making my own music was going to be an uphill battle. It's always going to be an uphill battle, no matter what, working in music. But I just felt like for me to really, make this real, I felt the gateway to that was producing my own music, because if you're not producing your own music, I feel like generally you hit a ceiling. Not always the case, but generally you kind of hit a ceiling if you're not mixing your own or producing your own music, or at least doing something that's unique and different, right? Yeah. And so when I decided for myself when I was trying to figure out what kind of music I wanted to make, I thought to myself, I eventually landed on this concept of mixing the stuff that I grew up with in my culture, from my parents and from my relatives and my community, with the stuff that I grew up with being a Bay Area born and raised kid. Had you already been doing that in your DJ sets at all? Not really. Okay. Yeah, so the vast majority of my DJing for up until then was open format, hip hop centric open format. You're Bay Area raised, is that right? Yeah. So I had never really been including Middle Eastern music in my sets other than like weddings and the odd hookah bar or something, you know, like it wasn't, most of the time it was hip hop centric, open format. And so when I landed on this idea of like, I want to produce music that melds these two halves of my identity a little bit, both with the hip hop club influences I grew up with and any kind of dance music influences with all this cultural stuff that I grew up with too. I realized pretty quickly that it's going to be a little hard to play the music that I want to make at your average bar. Because the music that I wanted to make and the mashups and the edits and the bootlegs and stuff I was kind of ideating probably wouldn't land well on your average Friday night at a regular bar that you just kind of get booked at to play top 40 open format type stuff. So I needed a place to play my music. And so originally I had a opportunity, you know, where there's this bar called Melrose House in LA that hit me up, and I had played a couple gigs there with some friends, and they liked me and I liked them, and it was great. They hit me up and they said, we're basically looking for some more programming, and they're like, we'll give you a whole night to do whatever you want. I said, great. So originally the thought was just to call the night DJ Habibeats and Friends. And it was just going to be a night where we could do whatever, you know, and just do our own thing, and it would be ticketed. And I texted my buddy, he's a DJ that goes by the name of The Candy Rain. Shout out Segundo. He's also a really great graphic designer. And I said, can you make me a flyer that says DJ Habibeats and Friends? And he sent me back a flyer and it said Habibi's House. And he said, this is way better. and I said, you're right. And so that was the first time that I had my own little event to play my own kind of niche of music that I wanted to do. And so I sold about 80 tickets the first time. It was a 400 capacity bar, so it was not that many people.
I've been there, yeah.
Yeah, but the people who came had the absolute time of their lives. And so, you know, then I had released some bootlegs and remixes and edits and stuff on SoundCloud. I'd also posted about them on TikTok, and it was all in the style of music that I wanted to do, and they blew up. Particularly one, I remixed this song. This is very, very, very popular hit pop song from the early 2000s by a Lebanese singer named Nancy Ajram. The song is called Ya Tub Tub. And it's kind of like, you know, it's like the level of song that just everybody grows up knowing, and it's a hit. So it's in the Middle Eastern world. So I remixed it in this kind of Brazilian baile funk, heavy bassy style, as well as like a Jersey club style. And that had never really been, something like that had never really been done before, to my knowledge. And I posted on TikTok, and it got millions of views and like thousands and thousands of people making their own videos to it. And so that helped grow my following and grow everything. And then all of a sudden people were seeing what I was doing with the party. And so the next party that I did about a month later got like, we went from 80 tickets sold for the first one to like 320 tickets sold at the second one. And then we started selling out 400 tickets for, you know, like selling out the venue. And it just eventually kept growing, and I kept putting out bootlegs and different things. And it got to the point where people started saying, when are you going to bring this concept to New York? When are you going to bring the party to London? When are you going to, we need it. Because there was really not too much like it. So that is kind of like how that kind of started.
The ramp up. Yeah. That's super interesting. Were you established as a DJ in the Bay Area before this? Because it sounds like you've been DJing for a long time before.
Yeah. So I had been DJing for a long time before, and I was pretty established in the Bay Area. Like I felt like I was really plugged in with the whole scene, and I knew every relevant DJ out there, and was tight with a lot of the clubs and like doing all kinds of stuff out there. And then I moved to LA in 2018, actually for law school, which I finished and graduated, and I passed the bar exam, but I never practiced any law.
Do you think it helped you at all in your music career?
A little bit. Yeah, I think in the beginning it helped me have some more negotiating power, just because I was able to read contracts and like they didn't look like a foreign language to me, and I could confidently say like, okay, this doesn't make sense. This doesn't make sense. Blah, 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 blah. But like, I don't know. I mean, it wasn't like a crazy advantage. It helped me, I think, my business sense and
Sure.
but so when I moved to LA, like, I didn't really know too many people in the LA scene originally. And then over the years in law school, I was DJing throughout school, met a lot of people in the scene and was pretty active. But the impetus for like my general growth online came from TikTok. So in 2021, early 2021, it was my last semester of law school, and we were still locked inside for COVID. And I was losing my mind, as I'm sure you were as well.
Yeah. Did they go to like online classes and all that?
I did law school over Zoom, which I don't recommend.
Yeah, that sounds pretty bad.
It's probably the worst thing of all time. Yeah, trying to stay engaged and focused in a 3-hour law school lecture on Zoom.
Dude, and you're still going to get the same exam you would have gotten, if you had the real classes. Yeah, that's rough.
It's horrible. So long story short, I was bored out of my mind, couldn't DJ. I tried some Twitch live streaming stuff and was doing that for a bit, and it was really fun, but it was a lot of work. Twitch, you really have to be very consistent.
Dude, it's its whole own thing. People who listen to this podcast know I did a Twitch thing for a minute during the pandemic too. And yeah, it was fascinating and I really liked doing it. But by the end, I was like, yeah, this would be like, if I wanted to really do this, it's like a career change almost.
It's a career change, yeah. You have to treat it like a daily TV show.
Yeah.
And it's like... there's a reason why the biggest streamers are streaming 24/7. It's because you just kind of have to be
100%.
Basically, I started posting on TikTok totally for fun, and what started taking off very unexpectedly was this like series I had done about hip hop samples. It was called Songs You Probably Didn't Know Were Sampled, or samples, and I would showcase the 70s sample on one turntable, and I would speed it up, chop it up, whatever, and then transition it to like whatever song, that sampled it. And I would do that for like popular songs. And it sounds insane, but from January of 2021 to like May of 2021, so like 5 months, I went from not having a TikTok account to probably 500,000 followers on TikTok.
Damn.
Just because I was posting 3 videos a day.
Oh, wow.
of this, and each video was going viral. And I was just bored out of my mind at home, and I kept on making them. Did
you get burnt out at a certain point, keeping up that pace?
Yeah, at a point, certainly around finals.
Yeah. Even just coming up with ideas every day like that, I feel like after a while, you go through all the songs that have samples, and then you have to dig for more.
Yeah, it definitely got to a point where I got a little burnt out for sure, but I think another key thing there with that was that it was a series of videos. And so it would say like songs you probably know were sampled, part 27. So then I think people would engage with it, and then they would think to themselves, well, I want to see the other parts. So then they would go and watch my entire history, and then they would follow me because they loved it. And so like the following was really growing. And by the time I decided, so by the time I graduated, or in May, TikTok had hit me up, and they said that they were starting a radio station called TikTok Radio on Sirius XM, and they wanted to sign me for a once-a-week live show for a year. And so that was the moment that I thought to myself, okay, I think there's actually some tangible opportunities coming from all of this, and I think I might want to consider not practicing law and pursuing music for real full-time. And more opportunities slowly came with you get, especially in that era where TikTok was really new. And if you had a following of any sort, brands would reach out and they'd be like, can you do this or do that or feature this in your video? So I'd done a little bit of that, but like at a point, I got to a point where I was like, okay, I don't really want to be an advertisement. Like it's not really my calling, and it's not really my calling to like make ad content for brands. It's about the music for me. And so that's when I started thinking about producing music and pivoting a little bit. And which led me to whatever. But the impetus for the social media growth originally, which gave me the platform and the confidence to like kind of pursue a different thing, was TikTok. And if you remember, Reels didn't always exist.
Yeah.
So Instagram Reels was Instagram's answer to TikTok. And so when Instagram came out with the Reels, so this is a surprising, interesting like stat for me, I think. I had gone from nothing to like maybe 700,000 followers on TikTok in that year of 2021. And I would say like, let's say at the point of like 400,000 or 500,000 on TikTok, like that's when Reels came out, I think. And although I had gained maybe 400,000 or 500,000 on TikTok, what that converted to in Instagram followers was like a growth of like maybe 6,000 or 7,000.
That is interesting.
So not a lot.
Yeah.
And so when Reels came out, I took every single one of my TikTok videos and I posted them on Reels one by one. And in 2 months, my Instagram following grew by about 200,000. So that was a massive like swing too. And that is when I kind of started deciding, okay, I have the platform, I have a creative vision, like how can I make this happen? And I didn't know what would happen from it, but I just kind of output it and it led to where I am now.
Yeah, no, that's super interesting, man. I mean, one thing I talk about on this podcast all the time is the sometimes uneasy relationship between artists and social media platforms, you know, music and culture versus capitalism, all that kind of thing. Where are you at with it now? Do you still feel the pressure to like post all the time? Or does it still have the same amount of like impact on what you're doing?
It's an interesting thing, you know, because now that I've been kind of doing this more full time and more, music has really become more of my life, and I've been touring and playing shows a lot over the past couple of years. My social media focus on social media has gone way down for me, and my focus has been on live performances and traveling and working on music, being in the studio, and that's all important. But I still think to this day that the biggest, easiest, most like high ROI thing you can do is social media. And of course, it's not my favorite thing, and I don't always feel like doing it. And I myself am trying to get better at it still, and trying to get back to posting in the same way that I used to be, or as often as I used to be. But it's hard as you get busy. But the reality is, it is the biggest driver of your growth. And so you have to just think of it as a tool, a free marketing tool to be utilized. And it's hard for it to not consume you and be, you know, kind of depressing sometimes. But the reality is we're living with it, right? And so if you're not doing it, someone else is. And that's what you're up against. And so if you really want to be a part of this and do this and play this game, like, I think people have to be willing to do that.
Yeah, no, of course. Absolutely. I mean, I think it's about finding, whatever way is comfortable for the individual to engage with it, whatever way doesn't feel like clocking into a job, whatever way doesn't feel like sort of fake or insincere. And that's going to be different for everybody. One of the things I like about what you were saying when you started with TikTok is the fact that you made a series out of it, which for somebody like me is very appealing, because then it's not, well, every day I have to come up with a concept for a new video. Like, you know, it's like every day I have to write a new song kind of mentality. Versus, no, there's like a framework here. There's a structure. There's a container. I just have to fill that container each day. That seems much more achievable and kind of like less daunting for an artist who's just starting off. I think that's worth considering too, you know?
I completely agree. I think that was like a really helpful thing for me. And then you can design different containers that you can then try and fill based on how you're feeling. Right. And you can test out what works and what doesn't. And if you find that one of them starts working, then double down on that. That's I think a good way of doing it. I also think it helps to drive a following, because people who are interested in part 5 are interested in part 3 and are interested in part 30. You know, so That's a good one. A good thing to, pursue for people. What I always tell people who like ask me, how do they get their social media game up is I usually just say a couple things. It's like, don't do anything that feels inauthentic because the whole thing is authenticity, right? Like social media used to be a place where it was like, this hyper manicured, look at my perfect life and perfect existence, and I'm living on another planet, right?
Yeah.
Like that used to be what was cool on social media. That's not the case anymore. What's cool now is just being yourself, which is awesome, right? It's just being like on your phone, doing a recording in your bedroom, talking about whatever.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be this hyper produced thing with lighting and 5 camera angles and HD everything. And I actually think it's probably detrimental in lots of cases to have it be too produced.
Oh, dude, it's like my favorite thing now when you see like an older generation European progressive house DJ posting, like a photo, like a literal photo shoot in front of a, Mercedes or whatever. And just the comments from top to bottom are just like, fuck you, this sucks. Like, it's so fun to me now, man. Because I almost feel empathy for people in that situation too. Because for them, I think maybe that is even their life. Maybe they're like, no, this is what I think is cool, but it's just culture has moved past that,
Yeah, absolutely. So I totally agree. And so it's like, on the one hand, be authentic to who you are and what you creatively want to achieve or accomplish or output, right? Like that's key because people now can smell when you're not being your authentic self. And it's very palpable when you're trying to be something you're not. People have a really good radar for that now. And so lean into who you are. And then the internet's really good at finding people who are also into what you're into. And it'll put your stuff in front of them, hopefully, right? Like that's one. But then the other thing I say to people is like, you're already in the case of many creatives, whatever kind of creative endeavor you're pursuing, you're already doing cool shit. So just film it. Just film it and put it up on the internet. You'd be really surprised. A lot of the times videos that I don't even think are particularly that interesting or cool of my own, but I just go, I'll check it up there and just like see what happens. Like sometimes those get the most views.
Yeah.
And you never know what resonates with people. Sometimes different things about your content will resonate with people.
It's the same with writing songs, not to cut you off, but it's exactly the same with writing songs. I think almost every producer I know, the songs that they think are their best are never the songs that the public thinks are their best, Yeah.
And you really have to create first and foremost for yourself. I think that there's like a Rick Rubin quote to this effect. I can't remember the exact quote, but like the best art is the art that you make because you really love it, not because you're trying to make something you think other people will love. And it goes the same the same can be said for content. Like if you're trying to game it, it's just not going to work. Like I've tried it. It doesn't work. Like you just have to do what you really are into and then it'll resonate with whoever it resonates with. And you just gotta, and then at that point, it's just about whatever you're doing. And hopefully it's good quality enough to resonate, but
well, and that also is going to give you the best shot of not hating your life either, which is another important component of this when it's something you're going to have to do all the time. And this is kind of my last question on the social media tip, and we'll move on. But for you, I mean, how do you seem like a calm dude. You seem like you have a pretty good head on your shoulders for just what is required, what you need to do to get from point A to B, what feels good about it, what you don't want to engage with it. How have you kind of found that balance for yourself to be, at least ostensibly calm and collected while these things are happening, growing around you, the business is going crazy, more pressure? Do you have any wisdom you've acquired along the way?
It's a good question. It's been up and down, and there's been moments that are harder than other moments. But I think at the core of it, I just try to stay true to who I am and to why I did this in the first place and what my vision for it all was in the first place. And staying true to my sort of compass. I think what got me to where I am in life is my taste, my skill, my ability to connect with people and build community and empathize with people and like understand what the room needs or what I don't know, like all of that, right? So, and just my genuine love for music and culture and expressing all that stuff. So I try and keep those at the center of it all. Like I think at first if and when people start gaining a following, what happened to me for sure is it starts to mess with your head a little bit. Because you're just making little fun videos in your bedroom one day, and then the next day you have a following, and now there's all these people watching. And then you start to get a little self-conscious about what you're outputting. And you're like, well, what if what I post tomorrow isn't as good as what I posted last week? And then all these people don't like it. And I think it's easy to fall into that, and you have to make sure you don't fall into that. Just keep on doing you, because doing you is what got you to where you are. And so you have to like trust that, and try to tune out the rest of the noise. When I'm DJing in a bigger room, of course, it's a very different feeling playing for several thousand people than playing for several hundred people. So a very different feeling. Physical space is really different. How you connect with people is different. Your proximity to people and how you read the room and the energy in the room is very different. But I try to treat it the same. I try and treat it like I'm still playing in front of 200 people at a bar and we're all vibing. And like, I try and bring that energy because that's where I feel comfortable, and that's mentally where I feel comfortable, I guess. So, I would just say, staying true to like why you're doing what you're doing and remembering that and having that as your North Star rather than like worrying about how people are going to receive something.
Yeah. I think that makes total sense. Have you, on this bigger level now, have you kind of done the flip side of that? Like, have you done, more EDM-y festivals, getting booked with like, people from different walks of the DJ background? Like, have you done like EDCs and all that kind of stuff yet?
I haven't done EDC or anything too massive on that scale, but like I did BPM in Costa Rica in January. And I did a couple festivals in the Middle East. I did Middle Beast, Soundstorm in Saudi. I did one called Bread in Abu Dhabi. Bread's kind of like, go ahead.
Yeah. Oh, I was just going to say, that I want to hear more about that because that's fascinating. But I guess my question, I should have phrased it better, was like, for you, when you're in a space that isn't like your house that you've built, no pun intended, does it feel weird? Do you do anything differently? Kind of, reflecting off of what you were just saying about like not changing up what you do.
So yes, the answer is yes. So it's interesting because like, I understand I just told you that you need to be true to yourself, right? And I don't feel like this is not being true to myself, but you at the same time have to make sure you're delivering a good product. Right. Like,
well, and just like music is a conversation, right? So it's like you have to make sure that people understand what you're saying, right?
Completely. So like, for example, I just played, it was really interesting. I was just having this conversation. I just played a festival in Mexico, in Monterrey, 2 days ago. And that was a situation in which the vast majority of people and it was like a big dance tent there. It was a situation where the vast majority of people, I'm fairly certain, had no idea who I was. And there was a lot of people walking around. The main stage was nearby, so people would walk by and maybe come listen, maybe not. And that's a situation where, because it's not my people coming into the situation that I've built for, and we all understand it, the conversation has to start a little bit more surface level.
Right.
Like you said, I can't just instantly get into these deep topics, so to speak. Right. Like for example, how I kind of approached that was, I'm going to keep my set, and it's only an hour, which is not a lot of time. I'm going to keep my set in between like 122 to 135 BPM. Most of it's going to be a 4 on the floor kind of situation, with a good bass line that people can groove to. And it's going to be influenced by all these different cultures and stuff that I like to represent in the music I play. It's going to have Middle Eastern influence. It's going to have Indian influence. It's going to have Brazilian and Latin and all these different things. For sure. And it's not going to be your standard stuff that maybe you've heard at 100 other house sets, right? Like, No shade to anyone.
No, of course.
But it's going to be different. And that for sure, but it has to be accessible enough that someone who maybe has never engaged with any of this can at least still understand how to groove to a beat, right? At the very least, they can like rock back and forth and they can find themselves and find, center themselves. So that's how I engaged with that. Because it does matter.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, I mean, how did you start learning how to produce? Because I feel like I'm the same as you. I have a long DJ background, and I came to production later in my career. And it was an interesting thing where, at least for me, I had this innate understanding of dance music and a long history playing it and nerding out about it. Like there's an intuition that I think I have and you have and many of our peers have that's just kind of natural. But then when you sit down to actually learn the software, it's sort of, it can be a rude awakening where you're like, oh no, I have to act like I'm 5 years old here and kind of take it back to the basics. Was that a hard thing to do while you were sort of trying to grow, what you do in general at the same time?
Yeah, yes and no. I mean, I started messing around with production when I was about like 15. So it wasn't brand new to me. I had made lots of mashups back then, and I had made lots of little bootlegs. And in college, I started messing with it more. I remember entering remix contests and like trying to produce remixes and beats and different things. So the fundamentals of it were understood to me. And so when I started taking it more seriously again, I already had that as a groundwork, but I certainly was not where I wanted to be, and I'm still not where I want to be. Like I'm learning every day, and I think every song I put out, production-wise, gets better and better. But I think that my understanding of music via DJing has helped a lot with closing the gap between where I want my stuff to be and where it is. And I do dedicate a lot of time to just like learning and absorbing and working with other producers and meeting up with other people. How do you do this? And how did you do that? And how did you get it to do that? And I'm always trying to learn. And so, yeah, I mean, it is daunting. But at the same time, I had a little bit of a framework, so that helped. And it helps, I think, for me, too, that the music that I make and that I aspire to make doesn't require too much of me to have like music theory knowledge, like because it's dance music. And I don't mean that to say that dance music doesn't have music theory or that it's not important.
No. I know what you mean.
Clearly it is, but in moments where I need musical elements that I can't produce myself, like I just hit people up and say, I need, a chord progression for this, or I need you to play strings like that. And I'm really good at directing. So that helps. And I would say I luckily have an understanding of music enough that like I don't technically know any music theory. I don't play any instruments. I played saxophone as a kid for a few years, but
any music in your family history? Anybody?
Yeah. My uncle is a DJ and he taught me how to DJ. My grandmother's brother is a singer and plays the oud, like the Arabic guitar. Yeah. So there's some music in my family, and my youngest brother is at Berkeley Music right now. He plays keys. Yeah, but luckily for me, even though I don't have a formal training in music, I think my ears are tuned really well in the sense that I can completely always accurately understand when something sounds right or wrong. Yeah. And I can get it to sound right. It'll take me longer than someone who has the theory and the skills, but I'll give me enough time and it'll sound right.
Yeah. No, I'm the same as you. I mean, I have maybe a little more music background than that, but it's the same thing where, yeah, it's always just been about like do it by ear for me. And even when I know better, I don't know. But like, even when I know the technical theory behind it, it's still like, I just do it by ear anyway, It's one of those things.
It's been the same with DJing for me. It's never something that I learned like from a manual. It was something that I just kind of learned by feel and by teaching myself, but also learning from others. Like I've never in my head felt the need to like, okay, 1 bar, 2 bars, 3 bars, 4 bars.
Right.
Like now it's time to transition. Like I've never had, I just feel, it's fully just feel.
Well, it's interesting, now that we've been talking a little, I'm getting a sense of your background. I feel like I can hear a lot of what you're talking about in your productions. Like I was listening to a bunch of your music before we hopped on. Like I was listening to Hayati. Is that how you say it?
That's the one that's coming out this Friday.
Yeah. So by the time people hear this, it'll be out. And I wrote down, I was like, I could tell, I didn't realize you had exactly the DJ background you do, but like, I can hear like old, like INOJ, Love You Down, or like Shorty Swing My Way vibes. And, it's like very DJ record influenced.
Yeah.
And even like the Miami record that you made before that, which is like, your take on Miami bass and freestyle and like 80s and 90s stuff, which again is like DJ nerd gold,
100%.
Yeah. But it's cool to like use those influences for like a modern, fresh take on production. Like it doesn't feel like those are records meant for like open format DJs in the Vegas clubs. You know what I mean?
Totally. And they're not supposed to be. And although, hell, I wouldn't mind.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
But they're not supposed to be. And it's supposed to be a true melding of like, again, the stuff that I, as a DJ, as a music head from the Bay, grew up loving, and also the stuff that I grew up loving from my culture. It's supposed to be both of those things in a way I've never heard before, and I think most people have never heard before.
Have you gotten any pushback from like, using traditional influences and recontextualizing them, like from any corner?
No, not really. I don't think I've gotten really any pushback at all. People seem to really like it. I think people feel that they are just happy to see their culture represented. Because historically, I think for particularly Middle Eastern culture, it's always been represented really negatively in the media.
Or really just like one note stereotypical, I feel like.
Yeah. So I think when people see stuff like this, they just get stoked that like it's something representing the culture that's fun and cool and positive and different and fresh. And it's not just like this one thing that's always this monolith that's always, in the media. So no, I don't think I've really gotten much pushback.
No, that's great, man. I'm glad to hear it. I mean, it's exciting stuff, and I feel like there's an energy you can feel in it that it is, at least I'm just speaking for myself, but it's like, oh no, this is just fresh. Like I feel like people, kind of like what you were saying earlier, where people can smell when something's insincere. I feel like people also have this weird instinctual connection to something that is like kind of actually a new idea, because there's so few new ideas left,
Yeah. I mean, I agree. I think at the end of the day, right, art is a very human thing, and everything we do around it, DJing, whatever, music, like dance floor, like all of that is just the connective tissue is that it's all very human. And like I think humans innately, whether they realize it consciously or not, feel certain things, and it elicits certain things, and that's, I think, what you're talking about.
Yeah, no, 100%, man. Well, what were you hearing when you were growing up? Have you always been a music nerd? Was there a moment where something really connected for you early on that like changed, the path or like broadened your horizons?
I was listening to a lot of stuff, man. I'm really lucky. I mean, in the Bay Area, like, we grew up with a lot of Bay Area hip hop. So from a very young age, was listening to like Too Short and E40 and like those kinds of artists. And so that's one influence. Growing up, in my Arab household, was hearing all the classic Arab singers, whether it's like Abdul Halim or Kulthum or Fairuz or like any of these classic Arab singers, as well as the Arabic pop music that was popping off in the 90s and early 2000s, whether it's Nancy Ajram or Amr Diab or Hakim or whoever was coming out at that time. So there was a lot of that. And then I was very blessed in that my uncle, who taught me how to DJ, was also a big music head. And so he was exposing me to a lot of stuff that I think other 10-year-olds were not like getting exposed to. So like at 10, he's having me listen to like Egyptian Lover and Planet Rock and like those kinds of things that I don't think I would have gotten otherwise. He was a big freestyle head and house head. So I was listening to like a lot of trance and house music at that age, which like, I don't think I would have gotten otherwise.
Was anybody else around you? Did you have any peers, any other kids who were like also music freaks, or were you kind of like the odd one out?
I had like a couple, like one of my best friends growing up is Venezuelan, and so he was always exposing me to a lot of Latino music. And his older brother was a big like trance and house head, so he would expose me to a lot of that stuff as well. But I would primarily say it was driven by myself or just like my uncle. Like every time I go to my uncle's house, I had the old original iPod, and he would plug it into his computer and give me the last 600 tracks he downloaded, and then I would just go home and listen to it. And I'd listen to it on the bus, and all of a sudden I'm listening to all this stuff. And he was also, obviously he was Middle Eastern too, and he was an immigrant. So he was DJing not only the freestyle and the house music stuff, but he was really into like global sound, world music stuff. So all of a sudden I'm listening to Punjabi music. I was in a Punjabi MC at 10 years old. I was listening to Persian music. I was listening to a lot of Latino music, especially being in California. So it was a lot of different influences, primarily from my uncle probably, but also I was just a big digger. Like I just loved going like all over the internet and just seeing what I could find. It just fascinated me.
Was it a pretty diverse area of the Bay Area that you grew up in? Super
diverse. So I grew up like first 6-7 years of my life in Daly City, which is just south of San Francisco. And it's quite diverse. There's a ton of Arabs, a ton of Filipinos in Daly City. And then we moved to Fairfield, which is about an hour outside of San Francisco. And I believe at the time I was going to high school, so Fairfield's right next to a town called Vallejo, and the Fairfield-Vallejo area around the time I was in high school was, I believe, listed as the most diverse area in the United States.
Oh, wow.
So growing up, I had one of my best friends was Venezuelan, one was Indian. I played on an all Mexican soccer team. Like everyone in my school, we had everything and everyone. And so I was always very exposed to a lot of that stuff. I grew up around my own like Arab community. So it's just a big mixture of everything for sure.
I mean, that's got to play into how you're able to connect sounds at this point, right? Like even just from the, it's just, if it's normal to a kid to have all different kinds of peoples and cultures around you all the time, I feel like that is just going to wire your brain a little differently,
I completely agree. It plays a huge role. And then even the types of gigs I was getting, like I remember, being younger, and before I was doing this full time, it was just kind of a thing I did for fun on the side. And I would take weddings and baptisms and cotillions and like school things and you name it. And then so I've done weddings that are just fully Mexican, where both sides are Mexican and half the people don't speak English, and like I'm there. And I had to like do a lot of research on like the different types of Latin music, whether it's cumbia or salsa or reggaeton or you name it. So I would take that really seriously because I took my DJing really seriously, and I didn't want to show up and not know what I was doing. So then I would always get like, requests and stuff from people. So I remember doing like a grad party for an Armenian girl, and she sent me a bunch of Armenian music that they love. And I did, like I said, the Mexican wedding, and I did a cotillion for a Filipino girl, and like a sweet 16 for this person or whoever. And so like I was always just downloading all this stuff, and I think that's a huge part of like what led me to kind of where I am musically.
What brought your parents to the area? Are you first generation?
I was the first one born in the States. Yeah.
Okay. And what brought them over? Like why the Bay Area?
Yeah. I think, so they met in the Bay Area, and they were both immigrated, but they met here. My mom had come from Kuwait. My dad had come from Jordan. And I think for both of them, it was just family. My mom already had a lot of extended family here, so that's where they ended up coming, or why they ended up coming. My dad had extended family here, and so he ended up coming. I think like every immigrant, it's like you had some sort of connection. There seemed to be some work opportunities, and you had some family there, and you were like, cool, I guess I'll move there. And so that's how they ended up there.
What did they do for work, or what did they end up doing there?
My dad ran a cafe in San Francisco for like 30 years. And he actually retired now. The cafe doesn't exist anymore, but he ran a cafe for like about 30 years in San Francisco.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, that's impressive, man. 30 years. That's no small feat.
No, absolutely not. I mean, it was bittersweet to, see him retire, and the cafe, like, we sold it and it flipped into something else. And so it's bittersweet to see that go, because I used to work there and I managed it for a couple of years, and it was like a cool little neighborhood cafe. And so, yeah, but I mean, no, he did his thing. A lot of the Middle Eastern sort of like Arabs I grew up around in the Bay Area, a lot of them were small business owners. I think it was just kind of one of the easiest things one of the most straightforward things to get into, probably when they all got here. And it's kind of one of those things that if you put in the work, you'll get a good return. And right. they all put in the work, and they all, so growing up, I was like, my cousin's dad ran a bar, and so-and-so's dad has a liquor store. And so like everyone did a little small business thing.
Yeah. Was the law school move for you, was that some first generation pressure to succeed, or was that like a career you had been thinking about for a while?
That is a mixture of both. Like my parents were not the type of people who were like, you have to be a lawyer or a doctor. Like they weren't those kinds of parents, but they were the kind of parents. And I grew up around the kind of community that was like, education is the most important thing, and make sure you get educated and you get a good paying job that has benefits and like you're secure, and then there was also this, you grow up as a kid of immigrants, you grow up with this, at least I did, this overwhelming feeling of like, okay, my parents sacrificed so much and worked so hard to get me to a place where I have all these opportunities and live this great life. So I can't like squander that. Like I need to like make it all worth it. And so therefore I need to like go get a big flashy job. Like I think innately a lot of us feel that. So while they weren't super like, you need to be a lawyer, they also, I don't think they would have necessarily supported me if right out of high school I was like, I'm going to be a DJ. I think they would have been like, I don't think so.
Do they get it now? Do they understand it?
Completely understand it now. And they're really, really, really happy. I mean, I think for any immigrant parent, what they want more than anything is to feel like their child is safe, secure, financially secure, like everything's good. They got a roof over their heads and they're safe, all that's taken care of.
Sure.
So that's, I think, when a lot of them came over here and ran these businesses, I think they looked to, especially in the 90s, early 2000s, they looked to these like standard 9-to-5 salaried jobs as like such a safety net kind of thing. It's like, you've got benefits, healthcare, clock in, clock out, you got time off. Like that's the dream, because when you're running your own business, you can't really have time off, and you have to like, you have to worry about everything all the time. So I think that's what they envisioned for their kids. They also, at the time too, like particularly in the last 5-10 years, like just the world has changed so much. And I feel like you can now make a career out of pretty much anything if you hit it the right way, but that wasn't.
Yeah. And a lot of the old safe careers are not safe at all.
Safe at all. Yeah. And so even the concept of like, you go work hard at a company and get promoted and all that, and then you can, that doesn't really exist, so the world's shifted a lot. But they're super happy and super understanding they understand what I do now. They've come to my shows. They're stoked.
That's awesome, man. Do you have a lot of extended family still in the Middle East? Are you able to like go back and maybe play some of those festivals and blow some minds over there?
I don't have too much. I have very, very few family members still over there. Most of my family is either in the Bay Area, or funny enough, I have a lot of family in Australia. Just as it goes with like situations where people immigrate for better opportunities and safety and all those things, right? For a lot of immigrant communities. So unfortunately, I don't have too much family over there. I still have some, but I don't think that they're of the generation that's interested to come to a music festival.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. Well, I wanted to make sure I got back to it and asked you at least for a second, like what were those festivals in the Middle East like? Because we talked about when you're, presenting what you do for people who are maybe unfamiliar, but I think like in the Middle East, it must also almost be the opposite situation where they're maybe like very familiar to the point where it's like less novel in some ways. I'm not saying it right, but I think you know what I mean.
I know what you mean. And it's a really interesting conversation in general that I've had and thought about. Like, I think what I do inherently in the way that I've been doing it speaks the most to the diaspora community and less to the community of people who never left the Middle East. Because the whole feeling amongst people in the diaspora, when they come to my shows and they talk to me after, they say, wow, we've never felt represented this way. We've never felt included in this way. We feel so comfortable and like we're celebrated, and that's so cool, because typically that's not the case. And so they're yearning for their culture and they're yearning for representation and that feeling. Whereas you go to a place like the Middle East where that's the dominant culture, right? And so they don't necessarily feel like they're thirsting for their culture ever, because it's around them 24/7. So in my experience, what I think, and it depends on the country, every country's different, it depends on the scene. But in general, what I've noticed in the Middle East dance music space, nightlife space, which in and of itself is new and growing, and it's like a new thing, right? Like there never used to be music festivals in Saudi Arabia, right? This is all very new. So what I'm noticing is that there's an interest towards what they don't have typically, which is all the Western stuff. So like when I played in this music festival called Bread in Abu Dhabi, which is kind of like Complex Con vibes. Like it was like I think it's actually presented by Habibeats.
Oh, wow.
But it was like the kind of thing where it was like music meets art meets fashion meets, it's like there's all kinds of stuff happening there. It wasn't like a Coachella where it's just a big giant stages. It was more so like cultural, but also there was a big main stage. But like, for example, at that festival, the main stage was entirely made up of US or British rappers. So there was not a single, I hope I'm not misremembering, but from my memory, there was not a single regional act on that main stage. They had a smaller stage where I was. Right. And that's where some of the regional rappers were and regional artists and where I was. And now granted, a lot of these British and Western rappers, as a matter of just actual numbers, have way more of a following.
Sure. They're going to move tickets.
So they're going to move tickets. Like I totally understand it. It's not like mind blowing. But I just found it interesting where I was like, whoa, like it was the first time I was doing a festival in the Middle East, and I was first time attending one too. And all the headliners are not from here. The headliners were like Ty Dolla $ign, Metro Boomin, Don Toliver, a couple of British rappers. I can't remember who. Offset, I think. So that, those are the headliners. So which of course makes total sense, but because they're going to move tickets and because like that, music dominates globally. So I get it, but it was interesting to see that. And it was the same in Saudi. Like a lot of the headliners were like Eminem, Muse, David Guetta, sure. Like you name it, right? So
could have been any other festival in anywhere else in the world, right? Like that's the interesting part to me. Like, yeah,
totally. And I think that's kind of probably part of their aim, right? Their aim, I would imagine, is to just make it as appealing and as globally appealing as any other major music festival. Because at the end of the day, festivals are doing what? Selling tickets.
Yeah.
Right. So, absolutely. I mean, I get it. Yeah, it's not like a mind blowing thing. But I will say that like Saudi was a much bigger festival, so they had more stages and more. They did have a lot of regional acts too. They did have like this massive Saudi singer on the main stage and like, different things. But yeah, so my experience has been that like Although when I have played in those countries, I played in UAE and Saudi and like Bahrain and where else? Jordan, Egypt, Qatar. My experience when I play in those countries, it's received really well. I mean, people are loving what I'm doing. And I'd say when I play there, like I try to do a little bit less of the like playing throwback Arabic songs that we all grew up with, because I think it's a little less cool or interesting over there, maybe. Because here it's different, in these States, it's like, oh my God, this is like my childhood. Like over there, it's kind of like, yeah, we listen to this all the time.
Yeah.
So I try and do more of like the like more dance music forward, but like with elements of all this other stuff, which is what I'm trying to do too. Like by no means am I trying to have Habibi's house be throwback pop Arabic night. Like that's not the aim. The aim is to really make it a cultural conversation between the East and the West and all these other influences. And there are going to be moments where I play this throwback song from the 90s that you haven't heard since you were a kid, and I just play it as is. And then there are going to be moments where it's like hard jungle, like drum and bass, dubstep, whatever, that I'm including elements of this other stuff. So it's supposed to be both. It's not supposed to just be like throwbacks night, you know? So, but it is really interesting, you know, playing in different parts of the world, and just audiences in general are different in different parts of the world, and what people are craving is different.
Yeah, 100%, man. And I think, you know, what you were just talking about, I think that's part of the key to your success is I think when people hear your music or go to your parties, I think it's pretty obvious that it's not a nostalgia thing. It's not a throwback thing. And like I was saying earlier, like at least to me, there's something in it, some, you know, little magical ingredient that is just identifies as like fresh or interesting or unique. And I think, I don't think that's just me. I think a lot of people can connect to that. For you at this point, we talked earlier about how it's sort of unbelievable that it's gotten to this point, but have you kind of reached an equilibrium with it where you're now thinking about where it can go from here? Are there things you haven't done yet that you want to do? Are there things you're looking at attempting to do in the short or long term?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, in some ways it has reached an equilibrium to where the concept is figured out and it's proven, and I've done it in lots of cities and people have seen me now, and like that's been great. And I don't want to necessarily like stop that, you know, because it's great and people love it and it's necessary and I love it. At the same time, I'm always thinking ahead and trying to, I think in this game, in this DJ game and music game, it's really, really easy to become irrelevant.
Yeah.
Right. If you're not doing something interesting and exciting and people don't think it's interesting and exciting, like it's just over. Right. And so very quickly stuff gets played out and stuff gets old and people are like, okay, I've seen this 100 times. And so just in terms of reinventing and moving forward and pushing the boundaries, like I'm always thinking of what's next, because if you get complacent, I think that's the start of the end. So for me, where that focus has been on two things, I would say primarily. Like the big one is production and my own original music. So I think the space is growing a lot, right? And I can see it in that before I did Habibi's house, I wasn't really aware of too many similar concepts in the US. I'm sure they existed. I'm not trying to claim I was the first person by any means. But now that Habibi's house has seen the success it's seen, I see similar events popping up in every major city in North America. I've seen every version of it. Habibi night here and Hayati night here and this night there and like whatever it is. And that's, first of all, amazing. It's not like I don't take any, it's not bad. Yeah, that's honestly the whole goal. The whole goal of all of this is to normalize it and to make this kind of music and this culture so standard that it's just everywhere, in the same way that you see reggaeton parties in every city and hip hop parties in every city and R&B night in every city. Like that's the goal, is for it to just be widespread. So I'm actually really proud and happy that it's gotten to a place where that's happening. And that's kind of the whole goal. At the same time, I can see the future and that it's going to get to a point where it'll get played out and it'll get And everyone's just gonna like, get to a point where, okay, we've heard all these songs and we've done this dance, and what's the next new thing, and that's just human nature. And so I'm trying really hard to work on my own original music so that I can carve out my own lane as an artist and really push the boundaries and still do all the other stuff that I love, but also push it forward. Because a lot of the scene right now is taking hit songs from the 90s and early 2000s and reinventing them to be, club friendly now. And that's amazing. And I do it too. But at a point that'll, I think, get a little saturated and a little done with. And so we have to like, now what's the next thing? What are we going to do next? And so that's what I'm trying to do with my production and my music. And so that's a big one. And that's the other big thing I'm trying to do is learn more and grow more in my knowledge and connection to different cultures. So even though Habibi's house leans predominantly Middle Eastern, and even the name is obviously really Middle Eastern, the vision for me from day one was always for it to be a global thing, like encapsulating all these interesting cultures and music that I find really cool. It wasn't ever meant to be a solely Arabic thing. So in my sets, even now, I'll often play Indian music, Brazilian music, Latin music, African music, and combine that with everything that I'm up to Middle Eastern wise and elsewhere and whatever. But I really am trying to like learn more and work more with artists and sounds from all these different countries and regions. So like I put out a song a month or so ago with a Punjabi artist by the name of Dr. Zeus and Akku as well. And that's exactly what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to have songs that are like hit Arab stuff and Middle Eastern stuff, but also hit Indian and hit Brazilian and Latin and Greek and whatever else is out there. I'm trying to like incorporate all of it. I really want to be a global citizen musically. So that's kind of looking forward, I think, what I'm focused on.
It's beautiful, man. And I think we're in a great time for you to do that. I mean, while you were talking, I was reflecting back. I mean, I remember back in like the I don't know, late 2000s or something, in sort of like the hipster blog DJ world, there was like this idea of global bass music that was, novel at the time. Essentially what you're talking about doing, like mixing, heavier like bass music stuff with global influences from around the world. But and there was a lot of cool stuff happening, but it was always sort of kept to that hipster niche, that label. There was like a ceiling on it where it was just never going to hit the mainstream or never going to hit, like critical mass. And I feel like, I'm not saying anything new here, but, then you see in more modern times, artists like Bad Bunny and all that breakthrough on the same level as any other pop star to the States and all of that. And, I'm not smart enough to say exactly like the cultural cocktail that had to come together to make that happen. But it does seem like we're in a time now where people are ready for that and ready to sort of accept it in places they wouldn't have before and like embrace it in a larger way. I don't know. Does it feel that way to you?
100%. Way more than any other point that I've been alive. I noticed it exactly like what you said. I noticed it when Bad Bunny became the biggest artist in the world, and all of his music is in Spanish, and a lot of the people that listen to him don't speak Spanish. Like that was a moment where I was like, okay, if he can do it, like I can do it. Another one was Burna Boy. Burna Boy reaching like critical mass, representing Nigeria and Afrobeats and stuff was like huge. Like this is a pattern of artistry, not from the US, dominating global charts. And that's never really been the case before. And so you're seeing it more and more. I think especially with just the way the internet is now and how connected everything is on TikTok and how open people are to like culturally different things. When I was a kid, when I was like 12 on the bus to school, and I'd be listening to like, I have a distinct memory of listening to, I can't remember what it was, but I was listening to something cultural, something off the standard top 40. And I remember this white kid, I'm like, this white kid sitting next to me snatched my like little AirPod out of my ear. He goes, "What are you listening to?" And he put it in his ear and he looked at me like, And he looked at me like I was insane.
Right.
And I was listening to some cultural thing. I can't remember what it was, Arabic music or what. But he looked at me like disgusted. And this is burned into my memory. I remember it like it was yesterday.
Yeah.
That era is no longer a thing. Like the era of like other cultures being weird and different and like, what is that? Is like so not the case anymore. And now people are really open and really actually looking for all this other stuff. And so now all of a sudden I'm seeing white kids on TikTok do Arabic dances to Arabic songs. And I'm like, what planet is this? Like, it's so cool. Everything's so interconnected. And then you got like K-pop stars are making South African amapiano music and doing the South African dances. And I'm like, this is crazy. Like there's so much of a just global cocktail occurring where I think it's very ripe for like all these cultures to have moments. On top of that too, I think the quote unquote like dominant narrative around music is changing because with access to the internet, Spotify, TikTok, algorithms, you can now see the emergence of way more like popping niche verticals of music. It's less like before when you only had, let's say, the radio. It was like, here's what's popular, here's what's cool, you know, and that's just kind of all you knew. Then you get access to the internet and Spotify and you get TikTok and you get these hyper specific feeds of music being fed into your algorithm. And if you are all of a sudden into this and this and this, you might have not even ever heard of what these other people are listening to. And so I think it allows for the growth of much more niche scenes, which is cool.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right, man. Well, it's great that you're doing all this, man. I'm a big fan of everything you're doing. Before I wrap it up, is there anything else we haven't talked about? Anything else that's on your mind? Anything else we should get out there before we go?
I don't really know. I mean, other than the fact that there's always a show somewhere. So if people are interested, come see what it's all about. There's always a link in my bio to wherever I'm playing. I got new music on the way all the time. So, you know, stay tuned. I would say also that like what I do and what I'm aiming to do and the culture around it is a very, very open thing for anyone. I don't want anyone to ever feel like it's like, oh, it's an Arab party. I'm not an Arab, so why would I go? It's not like that at all. It's super open. Every culture there feels represented. Every culture there feels comfortable. And it's a very open space for people to just come and enjoy music and hear something that they don't usually hear and enjoy themselves. So, you know, don't feel like it's not your scene. I want everyone to come and enjoy, everyone to come check it out. It's fun, it's cool, it's cultural, it's something different. And at the end of the day, it's good music, you know, that's what matters. So yeah, that's about all I have to say.
And I mean, and I will tack on to that for my, largely white EDM leaning audience too, is like, it's just more fun. The shit's more fun, man. Like I'm, fully entrenched in the largely white EDM ecosystem, but like for anyone who hasn't checked out this kind of event, whether it's yours or somebody else's, it's like, it's something every music fan should do for themselves if they haven't already, because it's a healthy thing to do.
I completely agree. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. There's all kinds of rhythms and BPMs and sounds and vibes represented. And it's really a journey, and there's a lot of fun to be had for sure.
Well, dude, this was great. I really enjoyed talking with you, man. I hope you had a good time.
Likewise, man. No, I had a wonderful time. Some really, really interesting topics to get into for sure.
All right, dude. Have a great rest of your day.
All right, brother. Have a good one.
All right. Peace.